apologies for the delay, but we are here with a full quorum of council members present, and we are ready to begin our budget presentation for the Human Resources Department, and I'll turn it over to our esteemed city manager, Ms. Darnetta Tice.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. We're back before you today to do a couple of things. One is in our 5 budget briefings with you, we were unable to do the HR budget review. So we stand ready to review the budget of HR and then one staffing report that HR will also present to you. And then following that, we'll get into the regular budget briefing. So I'm going to introduce you to our HR director, Ms. Krista.
Good evening, Ms. Gilbert. All right, we'll go ahead and begin with questions for Ms. Gilbert on page 1 of 3. Hearing none.
I just have a quick question. Just on the salary, there's part-time. I know we have 3 people handling it and being involved with human resources for a long time. I think we probably ought to, if we don't do it this year, we need, and because I realize we're stabilizing, we need to take a look at staffing next year, additional staff, because human resources, we cannot let that get behind as far as records and filing all the stuff that you all have to do. So I just, when we were on personnel, I thought I would say that.
I was going to say from the mouth of an HR professional.
Yes. I don't know how she does it. I'll put it that way.
Amen. Krista, one issue I had in terms of just staffing in general, and I guess overall philosophy and direction with HR. Like I've seen some outfits, you know, you got your deal where you keep up with, you know, obviously the applications and who's going to get hired, where they're going, staffing. I guess payroll is more you and finance. But in terms of with as many vacancies as we have, a lot of, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of recruitment. Recruitment doesn't really fall into your wheelhouse necessarily. I guess I see some of the other departments attempting to do their own recruitment. Does that sound right? Like the police department or such and such. How much of our philosophy in terms of recruitment is there? I mean, we don't have a recruiter on staff per se, do we?
Not necessarily a recruiter. We have someone who handles that portion of HR. So it's 3 of us in HR. We have one person who definitely reach out and post jobs on our NeoGov, post jobs on different sites. So that is the recruitment that we have. We have one person to do that. So we do have someone on staff that does that, but not as necessarily a recruiter as what you're speaking about.
And I'm glad to see this. I think we got a big job fair coming up.
A hiring event.
Yeah. I was glad to see that.
7th, yeah.
Obviously, I think that's something that's sorely needed. But I was just in terms of recruitment. So the basic stuff, the NeoGov, the whole 9, hot jobs, whatever it is now.
That's correct.
We do that normal posting.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of really trying to figure out, you know, where we are with, obviously, we got some high turnover in our city. You know, we don't pay the highest, you know, in the metro area, and I don't think we're going to, and I don't know, nor should we. So what else do we have in terms of coming up with some ways to reel people on in here, you know what I mean? So I want us to start to talk about that, and city manager, I know we touched on that in the back. So let's, you know, I just recruitment. I guess in my sense, I mean, it seems like recruitment maybe, I don't know if it's as big of a priority as some of the other stuff, I guess, and maybe we need to look at that. I guess in my, you know, that's what I'm saying. So how can we start to look more that direction? And I guess you are with the job fair and the other stuff. So let's just sit down at some point and take another look at that and figure out how we can fill these slots.
Okay.
Filling these slots. We budget all this money, and I just don't feel comfortable with these slots being, not filled. And you get the same thing every year up here. Department heads come in here, and they're whining and hollering, oh, I need more money for this, I need more money for that. And, it reminds me of my kids. Daddy, I need a new pair of shoes. You got new shoes in the closet with the tag still on them. Where the shoes I gave you, and then we'll talk about getting you some more. It's hard to come in here asking for more budget money when you ain't spent the money we gave you. So is it a recruitment problem? Not necessarily on HR, because the departments bear some responsibility for recruitment as well, right?
Well,
I mean, you're an HR expert. I'm asking you. So
well, we post them on different sites. So we post the jobs on where there's specialty sites. For instance, accounting, we have posted with the finance team so that we can gain those people. We post with GLGPA, GMA, all the government sites, so that those individuals can look to see that we have the openings and they can come in.
But I guess in terms of what I'm saying is, does the fire department know how to go out and find the firefighters? You see what I mean? I guess they know the industry a little more so than say we would or you would, right? I mean, does Public Works, do they say, well, we got to figure out, we know where to find drivers or whatever have you, or is it that kind of a thing where the police department knows the industry, they know where to put up a billboard, they know where to find rookie officers, or
in
do
my
we need
experience,
some
most
help with
people-
that?
I'm sorry. In my experience, most people who want to work in local government, they generally go to the local government sites or government sites where you're putting most jobs out. That's generally what happens when people are seeking those type of jobs. They will look at the sites where government people post jobs, and generally it's
Okay.
like
I mean, we've been doing that for years. I guess my
Yeah.
question is, what else we got? We need to come up with some new stuff. I guess
Okay.
that's my point.
Ms. Gilbert, I want to commend you and your staff because the partnership with NeoGov is a relatively new one and
It is.
has certainly made applying for jobs through the city of College Park a much more seamless process, and one that we shouldn't take for granted, because in the past when people have tried to apply, they couldn't attach files. They could not fill out more than about 250 characters on particular lines. And so that relationship has made us look much more professional, and I believe has certainly helped us to recruit and retain better talent. So thank you to you and your staff for that. Questions on page 1 of 3.
And Crystal, I'm glad we got that, but I still want to do more. It's good to have that, amen. But and again, this is not necessarily on your department per se, but I just want us, city manager, you get what I'm saying, right? Okay, all right.
Any additional questions on page 1 of 3? Moving on to page 2.
I'm glad to see that the temporary jumped up a little bit, under 6170, so that's,
Yeah, I had a
gives you a
question.
little
on
more
that.
breathing room.
Did you have a question, or?
No, I just was,
I think you were just
Pointing
commenting
out
on
that
line
it went-
6170.
Because I had a question, why is it as much as it is?
because we are needing the temporary, instead of having the part-time position, we're using temporary services, so that next year we can look for a full-time position. And temporary services, you have to pay a good amount for temporary services.
Right, but why wouldn't we have this assistance in place by the time we get into the new budget year?
I'm sorry, what was your?
Well, this is a budget that starts July 1st, right?
Yes,
Okay, so do you not anticipate that you will have your positions filled by then?
well, instead of adding a part-time position, we're using temporary services.
So you're saying that you always are going to have a variation in the workload?
Yes. For
'Cause
five
I
and
thought-
four.
When we did the contract with NeoGov, it's with NeoGov, right?
Yes, sir.
I thought we had an agreement with them that during peak times that they would apply additional resources.
Sir, that doesn't include what we use.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Darnetta.
What we're using temporary services for is to help them catch up on the paperwork and the filing,
That's-
which would be outside of the resources that Neil Good could provide.
Right.
So this is just a temporary.
Temporary service. Yes.
So why aren't, so you're telling me that by July 1, you won't have resolved the backlog that you have now, that you have temporary people working on?
Well, that is there in the event that something, we always have a cushion for temporary services in our budget.
You,
We,
And council member, this is absolutely one of those that we'll revisit, at the point we check in with our 6 months. And you'll hear that over and over, when we get to the next phase of it.
because I don't want to shortchange HR. I think, you guys need the people you need. And we can't have a huge backlog of paperwork that we have to work off.
Krista, what else do you need to take care of what you have to do in that department? You have the expertise in that department, and I guess that's a piece of what he's asking. Is there anything that you think you need that's not here that, I don't want it to be where you didn't ask. If it's something that you see, not that we'll give it to you, but is there anything else that would help us get you to where you want to be in your department?
well, at this point, we have a temporary person in the office currently, whom is catching everything up. So I think that what we have here will be fine until the next budget year when we bring in the new person.
Until July?
No, to next year.
No, she
So
said.
you-
She's saying,
so-
she's saying she's good in
Okay,
this
so
budget.
she's gonna take care of everything
We're saying
for
we're going to be inadequately staffed looking forward to the next budget year. That's,
Wait,
Okay,
I
well,
don't-
why
wait,
be
I'm not sure that's what she's saying, because-
inadequately staffed for a
No.
whole year?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we currently have a temporary person here right now.
Do
who's
you
helping us.
need a full-time person here? I mean, is that what you need to get through the whole year to get caught up, or?
No, once the temporary person who's in the office currently, right now, she's there to help us get caught up. By July 1, we'll be good. And next year, we will revisit and we will get a full-time person in
Okay,
that.
so you don't need that now.
No, sir.
And I'm asking you because, I mean, your department theoretically is all departments in a sense. I mean, you get my meaning? Okay, so you're saying you're good, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that's where I was
All
going, that, this stabilizes it where it is right now, gets it caught up, and then we just need to keep our eye on it. Like the city manager is gonna do, she has said, we'll be keeping an eye on it just to see where it goes. And if that need is there, later on, we can address those issues at that time, so,
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have additional questions on page 2?
no.
no.
And page expense totals. So on the budget transaction report, page 1,
I got a question. Does drug screening that we do, does that fall underneath you, or,
It's across the board. It does come under me and then
but it's spread out?
yes, sir.
Okay, all right,
additional questions on page 1.
no.
Page 2, page 3. All right. appreciate your time, Ms. Gilbert.
Thanks, Krista.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for
Thank
what you
you.
do. Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right.
The next item on our agenda is a follow-up on our budget discussions. I believe, Ms. Tice, you're going to be handling that, is that right?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Again, good evening, Madam Mayor and our city council. At the conclusion of doing the 5 budget briefings, staff and I took copious notes, so we'll get to that in a second. What I'd like to do is to say to you that the budget that we're getting ready to do, the stabilization budget, has accomplished several things that we're excited about. We have found a way to give every staff person who works for the city of College Park a minimum of a 5% increase with, and as we have had discussions with the council and staff and those people, that is a rare occurrence for the city of College Park. So we are excited to have found a way to accomplish that. And it was accomplished by implementing a staffing study that the city had already done. We took the staffing study, the comp plan, and we raised everybody in the city to whatever the minimum was. So there are some staff people who actually are going to get more than a 5% increase. As we looked at each one of them, if a staff person was not positively impacted to the degree of 5%, we gave them a 5% increase. So there's nobody in the city who should experience less than a 5% increase. And so for that, we are very proud to say that College Park, with the support of the council, has been able to do that. In addition to the increases that we were able to give to the police department. I wanted to highlight as a way of thanking the council for their support. There were 2 major things that assisted us in making sure that we could bring you this quality of a budget. One was when you approved the financing of the $4.9 million in equipment for our staff, that we were able to take that out of the bottom line of the general fund. And with that, you are funding police cars, fire trucks, equipment for public works, and some improvements to City Hall. Thank you for that. The second thing that the council supported us in and is going to be helpful is we were able to take some of the strain off of the general budget to provide some additional street work and streetscaping in the various wards to the tune of about $3 million that came out of that line too. So it's an amazing job. I wanted to acknowledge the council for its support in allowing us to do those 2 things, which made this budget possible. With the and so I'll I'll take you to the next set. So in the 5 briefings that we had with the council, what this chart is showing you on is saying the 2022-23 budget workshop request items follow-up. This is a very small document. And so, but what we did was we took notes of all of the requests for council, and we were very deliberate in making sure that we either identified things that we could fund, or we identified other resources that might assist us, or most staffing suggestions or staffing increases, we're going to ask that we hold those, and you'll see it throughout the document until we do that 6-month check-in to make sure that our revenue projections are trending in a positive way. So with that, I'm going to take you to the chart. I hope everybody has their copy. So the first item, And Madam Mayor, please tell me what you would like for us to do. Should I go through every line? Should we do you have any questions on it? How do you want me to proceed? There are 3 pages, I'm sorry, there are 2 pages.
Why don't we just start on page 1 and see if there are questions?
Okay.
So page 1 starts at the GICC special district tax and ends at the power line.
All right, the second question, how much do we expect in '22 for special district tax? I see Phil is here. Do we at least have any ballparks? Are we gonna be in the norm? Are we gonna be okay? What were your thoughts on that? I know you may not have exact numbers, but I don't wanna wait until June to hear about it. What do you think?
That's when the numbers.
Phil, come on down here. Again, I know we don't have exact stuff, but I want to just get your thoughts in terms of,
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I can only speculate or extrapolate based off of the numbers that we have right now. And that's what we worked with the budget with, and we're gonna have that 6-month check-in. I mean, the county assessor hasn't provided even preliminary numbers yet, so I'd like to believe that we'd be probably trending positively. But numbers-wise, I think we were gonna revisit in June when I maybe had a chance to get some numbers from the county
okay,
assessor's
so
office.
a lot of that we're waiting on the county to
Yeah.
get a feel. Okay, all right.
And council, with the answers that we have here are not answers I created. Every answer here was in conjunction with working with my team. There's not an answer that I created. So the resources of my staff are represented here in the responses that we have. We worked on this as a team.
All right, additional questions on page 1.
Are you saying that this is what you're allowing or what we asked and we're considering it tonight?
I'm sorry?
Are we looking at this as what you allow or what we're discussing on trying to add to the budget?
Okay, so this is a compilation of all the feedback and input that the council gave. We tried to, if you all gave us a sense of what you thought it would cost, we tried to put it in there. And then the last column is what we recommend. And as a stabilization budget, I'm gonna ask you guys to please pay attention to the explanations that we give. And you'll notice that there probably aren't a lot of additions to the bottom line of the budget.
And I noticed, and I think there's some additions that should be added to this budget, but notwithstanding that, some of the stuff that we notated, I don't see here actually additionally. So I don't know what happened to some of those things.
If you
What's
could,
missing?
Well, since we're on the first page here, Public Works Department, we talked about a general, the Public Works Director spoke about some type of a general maintenance department per se for facilities, building maintenance overall. We talked about the fact that we have to call out for a plumber, for doors and fixtures and whatever have you, and all this type of stuff. And she had, in her head, put together, I think it was about $175,000 for something that I thought made sense to really look at in terms of money savings, overall facilities, building maintenance. You remember that? Because I don't see it in here.
okay, so this represented, I don't know that we were picking up staff thoughts like that. This represents the feedback from what council asked us.
This was
And so
during
we
the
could add
budget,
that.
and we did ask about that, and we
Okay.
talked about it, and it wasn't just to me that it made a little bit of sense. I don't know if, do you remember that exactly? Because
I recall
she
that.
had she had a number in mind, and I think it was around $175, if I'm correct, about a facilities, building maintenance that I thought maybe there was something to it where there would be an overall cost savings. And I thought that's something that we really needed.
Ms. Echevarria, correct me if I'm
but
wrong,
it's,
that was a budget request that was zeroed out, is that right?
Correct.
And I said, and we talked about it, and I, not just me, thought this was something we needed to look at.
Sir, we can add that back to the
Well,
chart.
I think we asked for it to be added. That was one of the
Okay,
pieces
let's
that's
do that.
missing.
And if
Ms.
anybody
Echevarria?
else sees anything we missed, we can add it to the chart. But
It would definitely be more than that. The 175 was just for operations. In terms of the staff meeting vehicles and also some type of workspace area, we were looking at, I think, almost $500,000. Am I correct? So that
Right,
was just
right.
operations,
That
how
was
to function off
operations.
of. It didn't include,
I know, and I know you didn't go into the big picture of it, but even the picture that you gave us, in my estimation, I said to myself, we got a plumbing issue, we gotta call a plumber. We don't have a maintenance person here. We don't have full maintenance at the GICC. To me, it made a lot of sense, and I figured we could save a heck of a lot of money, because I know how much Gene's plumbing costs when you got an issue, and it's a heck of a lot. But we don't have those simple things in terms of fixes with as many buildings that we have citywide. I thought the little portion of what you touched on and talked about, to me, it made sense.
And sir, that
So-
would require a unit that does not exist. This budget does not contain any units that don't exist. And I think that's what she's saying, that whereas we might have talked about a part of it, it doesn't have a facility, it doesn't have equipment, it's a new initiative,
and
and this does
Ms.
not.
Fuller Bradley?
and that's
Ms.
part
Fuller
of why
Bradley, Let me
we're,
ask you a question.
wrapping,
C-
going through
Ms.
this.
Fuller Bradley, how, you were saying a number in terms of how much a unit like that would cost, approximately.
It was between $600,000 and $700,000 is what they had budgeted.
I got it.
Got it.
And I heard the total number. I was just speaking to a portion of, we can't do all of that. I get that. But I think there'd be some cost savings to take a look at some overall maintenance where we wouldn't have to farm out everything again. And I want us to take a look at that and see bare bones what we could start out with to save some money, where we're contracting out every single little thing when a light bulb blows or whatever have you, in a manner of speaking. So I want us to look at that. It made a lot of sense when she came up here with it, and I said, I want to hear about that, and if we could come up with something that made sense. I suspect it would save us some money, but I could be wrong. I'm not a buildings maintenance expert. So I
Was
just,
that something with cost that maybe we take a look at later on, depending on cost? So,
We can do a cost analysis.
I mean, with this budget is again stabilizing and trying to keep things where they are. Is that something that, maybe we can kind of put on one of the other burners to look at later on if more money starts coming in than we thought we had? And
We can add that to our 6-month review.
that just,
I would think that if you have to create a whole nother chunk of the organization, that's gonna be a big getting started expense.
that's.
However, if you were to, and this would require a detailed analysis, you'd have to look at the kinds of jobs that we do around here, and then ask the question, well, is that putting a new washer in a faucet? Is that fixing a leaky valve, et cetera, et cetera? Small stuff. Then you got other things where like the bathroom we did over here, that we contracted out. That's a big job. If you're gonna include all those jobs, it's gonna be a huge cost, because you're creating a whole nother division. If you're just talking about one or two guys in a truck that goes around putting new washers and faucets, and
that's what I was talking about.
that's a whole nother thing.
And that,
I don't know how many of those jobs we have, and that's gonna require an analysis, and that's something that maybe you can do over the next few months after we establish the budget, and say, maybe hiring one or two guys and buying a truck will save us more than that, but starting a whole nother division. But you gotta do a more detailed analysis. That's something you guys, I don't think, can do in the short term. And maybe that's what Ken is saying
Yeah.
too.
I agree, but let's take a look at it. That portion of it, the smaller version, like Ambrose spoke of, I smelled some savings in it when you brought it up, when you had your budget. So that's why it interests me, that part of it.
Okay.
So,
Additional questions on page 1?
I had a question on the last item. Is this, response that you provided 5% plus 5% or 5% plus 10% for the line workers? Aid employees, is it 5% that you just offer all employees plus 5%?
No, it's 5% across the board.
Everybody got at least 5%.
Yes.
So in the response, it says workers receive 10% salary increase. Is that a response or you just reciting what we asked for?
I think
That's
that's in
during
two-
FY '21.
Right,
So in the 2020-2021 budget year, they'd received a 10% salary increase, and they will be receiving a 5% salary
On
increase.
top of that.
Come July 1st.
yes.
what line are you on?
Power line, the last
Power
one.
last line on the first page.
Okay, are you done? Councilman Gay?
Yeah, I'm done. So basically, the 166,538 would have been the 20% increase, but we're recommending that they don't get an increase.
That would have been yes,
Okay.
They get a 5% increase, because everybody gets a 5% increase.
right.
It's just saying, they already got a 10% increase, so we're gonna give them a 5%
Yes.
increase in this coming budget,
Yes.
right?
Correct,
And that's on top of the 10?
Correct.
Is that what you're
That's on
saying?
top of the 10.
So that's a 15% increase, technically speaking?
Not in the coming budget.
But not in the coming budget. I
Yes.
got you.
correct.
10%
here in
in
the 10, yeah.
'21,
Okay, I got it.
5% this year.
Right, I got it. So Public Works Department, I wanted to see what an increase would look like, $4 increase for all employees. And this is the 722 number. That's an additional money out there. Is that in additional funds
So, yes.
out
Yes.
there?
And I'm gonna ask Althea to join me, but I'm gonna also repeat once more, everything
I
on
got it.
this
I
was
got
done
it.
in
I already
Go
heard
ahead,
you.
Ms. Tyus.
with
Go
my
ahead and
team.
finish what you had to say.
Okay, so yes, and the response to this is the same as across. So that team also will get the 5% increase, and we can reconsider any other increases as we move forward. Again, stabilization.
Okay, I got it, and I thank you. But I want to hear from our department heads on some of this.
And the purpose of having our department heads present their budgets directly to council was to make sure that we had an opportunity for you to hear from all of my department heads, and that we could get that I could present to you as a council the results of our having, as a team, taken a look at the council's suggestions, and just in all fairness.
Thank you. So Althea, the 722, I know I'd asked for that number. What I wanted to see, and I talked to you about, I think, a week or two ago, or whatever it was, the $4 increase would cost us 722. Is that's a $4 increase for all of Public Works?
Correct.
Is that right? The lower line sanitation, the 177, that would be what it would cost for an increase for all of our sanitation workers. Is that right?
Correct.
I wanted to see both of those numbers. Obviously, I did want a $4 increase for all sanitation workers, and I was under the assumption, and I understand some of the rest of us were under the assumption that that $4 increase was all sanitation workers. Obviously, it was not. Turns out it was just for the 10 drivers. Is that right?
Correct.
Well, this 177 number, I think it's something that is doable, and I'd like to see that for our sanitation workers. And I say again, our city, the cleanup necessary here is unlike the other cities. We have the kind of dynamics, again, that require more cleanup than the average city. The average city doesn't have the kind of traffic we have. And I think this is needed. I think it's something that they definitely will deserve. And I think it sends the right kind of message. Again, we're trying to sell this property. We're trying to dig out of this hole. When people come looking to see if they want to develop in 6 West, develop on Camp Creek, wherever have you, Old National Highway, cleanliness is going to be an important factor of it. I want us to be as ready as possible and looking as good as possible. And I think the guys and young ladies work hard in your department, but sanitation in particularly, I think has been overlooked, and I want to see this increase. I want to see this increase in this budget, at least for the sanitation department. The 722 number, that's another proposition there. That's a little bigger fish there, but I at least want to see this in this budget. So,
What do we need to take out if we do that? If it goes into this budget, we're gonna have to,
no, we don't have to take out anything at all. We can add to a budget if we want to. It's our budget.
Yeah, but it's supported by fees paid by the residents, so I would have to reevaluate to see if we have enough revenue that comes in to support the increase. And that would mean that there would be an increase in the monthly rate, possibly.
And the other
Or
thing,
in property taxes or whatever
Okay.
is required.
No, it's not property taxes. It's got to be, this is a enterprise fund.
Sanitation.
and as my responsibility is to caution about picking particular groups when we have a staff of 570 people, all of whom have worked very hard. And there are a couple of other groups that I would do 20% for the whole city if we could afford it, but we can't afford it. And so,
Please let her finish.
We-
Please let her finish.
and so, caution against providing importance to a particular one, because it's just a snowball effect. When it's more effective, if we take a look in the 6-month period of time to see what we can do differently. This is a stabilization budget. We provided 5% or more for everybody. History says that has not happened often in the city. So I'm hoping that we'll join hands in being very positive with our staff, that we were able to, and as a council, give everybody a minimum of 5%. So,
City Manager, I understand where you're coming from. I hear that. But we pick particular departments and groups all the time for raises. And we pick particular department heads for raises all the time. We picked a lot of them before I got here and whatnot. So we're always picking particular. We don't do everything for everybody at any particular time. One department got a 20% raise. My point is this: we need to raise some of these salaries. We're over 120 employees down. We got vacant positions that are fully funded. We need to look at raising a few salaries here. So I'm not just talking off the top of my head here. I'm basing this on it's evidence-based facts. And I think this is something we need to do. I think this is a good start. We needed to bring our police officers up. And this is something that all cities had to do. Atlanta had to do the 30% 3 years ago. We knew we were going to have to do it. It was just a matter of just coughing up the money and doing it. And I think this is just as necessary here. So I think it needs to be in this budget.
Well, the funds are fungible. By that I mean money can flow back and forth between funds. Some is restricted, but many funds are not. So this is an enterprise fund if you're talking about sanitation. You could discuss this at the point where we do the discussion of the property tax issue, which is gonna take place in August timeframe or so. And you could say, yeah, well, we're gonna have to raise the sanitation rates if you raise it $4. Well, you might raise the property taxes $4. But I would think that we might wanna wait and see how our revenue is coming in the various ways, and then make a decision at that point. Because we're gonna have to make a decision on revenue as it goes forward anyhow.
And that makes sense. But Althea, a question. When we increased the driver's rates, did we increase the sanitation rates?
No, at that time, there was enough funding, but they have put in for additional equipment. We have leases, 5-year leases,
Right.
ongoing, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. So we did not have to increase the rates. I guess that leads me to the next question. Is Public Works here? Public Works is here, right? So we didn't have to increase rates because we had enough to do that with. How much more do we have left?
I'm not sure. I would have to go back and
Melissa, that's why
evaluate.
I'm asking Melissa to, and, I just want to get a gist, I understand, and what Ambrose says makes good sense. I guess my question is
Supports
there,
6 months for us.
I guess my question is, Melissa, is there a little more that we can squeeze out and do in this budget without affecting rates? And I'm asking, you know your budget probably better than anyone else. If you squeezed all the juice out of that lemon,
Yeah, I can't, I don't think you can take it. No.
okay, all right,
With the equipment and the
okay. All right, that answers.
I have one additional clarification. It's for the city manager.
Yes, sir.
You said that the power received a 10% raise in 2021. Are you confirming that?
I confirmed it.
Can you double check?
Not everyone did.
I think they received a $1,000 bonus.
We received, the entire city received a $1,000 bonus in fiscal year 2022. But I personally checked from fiscal year 2019 to 2022, and in 2021, they received 10%. It was just the electric line workers, not all.
Is that something we can see on some ledger somewhere? Not tonight.
Yes.
I mean, how do I look at that?
You won't be able to see it. We would have to provide you with the report.
Would you please?
I'll provide it to the city manager.
Okay.
All right, additional questions on page 1?
So the speed bumps, that would be for additional speed bumps, which the 18 are in. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, all right.
And I have a question for the Public Works Director. Can you confirm, as our final briefing, that the building and ground staff is fully staffed? They're fully staffed.
With the exception to the park rangers. Yes. So we have 3 new hires that will undergo orientation next week, and then we have 1 park ranger position. So at the new hiring event that we'll be having, we'll definitely be there, building and grounds. So those are the only positions.
And Melissa, on that, that third lineup, buildings and grounds, so you're telling me the landscaping outfits we hire would make more sense than you taking on a couple of people and handling some of this in-house? You're telling me you don't want to do that and it doesn't make financial sense? Is that what, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Are
What-
you on
you
page
know,
1 or page 2?
Page 1. On
Page
building and
1,
grounds, it's the third one up.
Third one up, from a,
Yeah, that's what he was there.
We're good. I think we'll be all right.
Melissa, I'm asking you, Melissa.
Yes, see this thing, I'm sorry,
I'm
Councilman
asking
Carr, I
you.
don't have a copy of this, so
Oh, okay.
I was trying
Okay,
to,
yeah.
And it's very small.
Yeah, it
Yes.
says the cost of landscaping service being in-house is more expensive than the contractual cost.
It depends. Again, this year we took over, this fiscal year we'll be taking over the city hall, which was outsourced.
And here,
So
here's,
if
right.
I am fully staffed with, the positions that were frozen that are I think we're in a good place.
Okay, is there enough money to get decent people at the salaries you're offering to get what you need? Here's the thing, overall, I'm asking y'all what you're gonna need for this summer. That means before July too, and that means after July. I wanna get you all what you need here. You know, I'm not trying to rob you guys. I'm trying to see what we're gonna actually need here. And waiting 6 months, well, you know, the presumption was that we may have waited 6 months for the police department, or we may have waited till July for them. I didn't think we could afford to wait. I don't think the same, and I think the same thing for our sanitation department. Can we cover everybody? No. But I just want to know, what can we cover and what do we really actually need, as opposed to preferences? What do we need? And so I'm asking because when I don't see the stuff getting done and I see the garbage cans overflowing, I'm going to be asking then. So I'm asking you what you need. I want you to have what you need because I'm going to hold you accountable, city manager, department heads. If the stuff is not taken care of the way we expect it to, at the level we expect it to in 2022, because we offered you the money for it. Well, I'm asking what you need. And if you're saying you don't need it, okay. If it's not coming up to snuff, it's my job to hold you accountable if it's not. So don't say I didn't make an offer. What do you need? This is the budget. This is it. We're closing it out. What do you need?
Everything I requested, I received, and again, it was a combination of not having the proper equipment and staffing, and I'm confident we can do that this coming fiscal year.
Okay. And I close my mouth.
All right, page 2.
The health program. So I understand we're going to look at other agencies to partner with, and that's a good start. My question is, and a lot of this stuff sometimes falls through the cracks. I've seen it happen before. Not referring to you, Ms. Tyson, long before you got here.
Look, I'm good.
Who is going to be the point person to coordinate this stuff and figure out what's available, what they can do for us, what we might need to pitch in? Who is the point person that's going to handle that and look at that? Because we say we're going to take a look at this, that, and the other. Who's going to be on that? Who's going to be able to follow up with us with that?
The fire department has taken the lead on
Okay.
that and has already scheduled their first meeting.
Okay, and I ask because I do have some community connections with Archie, which is the regional health outfit, as well as the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority. They're about to release the community funds. They suspended those in part to COVID, so.
If you could
We wanna
forward
look
those
there.
to us, we would
Well,
love to have
I'm
them.
asking, and not, because I want to work with the persons that are out here looking to see what we can get and see what we can come up with. So, okay, I got it, fire department.
Additional questions on page 2?
None here.
All right,
Where was the, there was something on here. Funding for Kids Fest. City manager, again, that's something I would like to see. I would like us to do a scaled-down version of this. And me personally, I think this is a big part in us stabilizing the city. East Point's doing festivals left and right. The city of South Fulton are doing festivals and things, bringing their residents out of the doldrums, so to speak. I'd like us to do this citywide event in part to let residents know that we are back, we're still here, and we're gonna be okay overall. I think it sends that message. Cutting that budget in half, I think, is reasonable. And again, I'd like you all to sharpen your pencils and find the money for it.
I don't have page 2. And surveillance gone in the computer page. Councilman Carn, were you done for that comment? Cause
No.
it's city, is the,
Yeah.
Is the Ward 4 Festival on here? Is it on here? Recreation funding for Ward 4 Festival as the city aims to stabilize operations, staff will advise funding of this request. When we were up here, I thought one of the elected officials offered $10,000 for each of those events. That's what I heard.
I'm
During our
sorry,
budget
say
session,
that again?
During our budget session, I thought one of the elected officials directed that, suggested we do $10,000 for each of those events.
I think that was me. I think I made that suggestion. I understand it. I mean, I think they're both great events. I also think that we are trying to stabilize, and even $10,000, if it just gets tricky. I think that, I mean, I'd like to revisit it a little bit sooner than the next fiscal year, but I mean, I just think if it's, we need to stabilize.
City manager, $10,000 doesn't get tricky at all. When we want to spend money on something, we spend it up here. Now, I want to see at least some of this funded. I'd like to see half the funding for some type of a kids fest, a scaled down version, at least $45,000 this year. And if I have to make a motion on that, I don't have an issue with it. And if it fails, it fails. I think we can do it. And you all are the experts. And I think you all can find the money for that. I think there'll be cushion revenues coming in for that. And I think we can cover that. So if I have to make that motion, I'll make that motion. And if it fails, it fails. But I think that's the least we could do. We can't fund everything. We can't fund every event, every festival. I want to fund one festival this year. And I want to fund it in this budget. So I'd
That's
like
from the
to make
rest of
that
the body.
motion. And again, if it fails, it fails. But that's something that I think we need to do, we ought to do. And that's what I'd make that motion for at least $45,000 going towards a scaled-down version of the Kids Fest for this year.
We do not handle motions during workshop session.
Well, I'm going to bring it
so-
up at the council meeting.
But
at
what is the
following
thought of
meeting.
what is the thought of the body?
So, city manager, put it on as an add-on item, so we can up or down it for a vote.
What's the thought of, Councilman Clay, what are your thoughts?
Well, I appreciate I think I told Councilman Carn, I like the concept of a city fest, or a kids fest, not a city fest. The problem I have is that, unfortunately, we aren't East Point. We have an arena, we have a GICC, and we have 35-plus hotels, and we've lost a year's worth of revenue and are paying money. We just don't have, I guess where I have the problem, I'd love to have the City Fest for our citizens and our kids. The participation there is much broader than that. And yes, it'd be nice to send the message that we're back. But guys, we're not back. We're in tough financial times, and that's what the city manager has been trying to stabilize. I just have a hard time saying that, creating an impression that everything is rosy when it ain't rosy. And that's why I keep talking about tax increase. You're going to get tired of hearing me say that, but that's a fact. And I just can't, out of the blue, support having festivals and everything else. The Main Street Association, for example, has been able to do a lot with citizen support, a real lot with citizen support. And I don't I don't know what the sponsoring organization would be, but if we could get somebody to sponsor this, maybe a corporate citizen or something of that nature.
How about we do sponsorships to see if we can raise $50,000? You know, going through this budget, I see a lot of corporate partners that we buy from every year, AT&T.
But
the
you
whole light, all of
you
them.
want to start out with us chipping in 50,000, and I just can't support.
Okay,
I've
all
said
right.
that before. I just
Understood.
can't support it.
Well, how about a consensus for staff? Go out and solicit $50,000 from our top 5 vendors and see if we get some money for a Kids Fest. How about that?
May I make a suggestion, please? The DMO is an eligible use of funds as far as I understand the language that I read. We gave them $2,230,000 to bring visitors to our city. They only spent $500,000 for the 3 cities. Why can't we have the DMO to fund Kid Fest and the Ward for Festival?
Well, we can spend DMO money, Roderick, for marketing of any event. And the last couple of Kids Fest, the DMO pitched in about $30,000 worth of marketing for it. Flyers, commercials, whatever have you. So we can do that arm and it doesn't touch the general fund. My question is there consensus up here where we have staff go out and say, hey, we want to have a Kids Fest, we want to raise $10,000 from 5 vendors or whatever have you, or $25,000 from 2 vendors or whatever, and see what we get. Worst case scenario, we don't raise the money, but I think that some of these vendors we've been working with over the years will pitch in.
I don't know whether we can legally do that.
Ms. Matricardi?
I see other cities doing it.
You can fundraise, and request that they would sponsor the events, but you wouldn't you couldn't use any city funds,
Right.
For those events.
And city staff is city funds in that instance.
Well, we do city staff for fundraise for nonprofits all the time. So that's not the case. Now, if we solicit from vendors, which I know for a fact is legal to do, we've done it before. If we do that and see if the monies can be raised and they can be the sponsors of the Kids Fest, they can put up their banners or whatever, I'd like to look at that at least.
If we could do sponsors, if we could get sponsors to come up with the money, DMO could help market it, because that's where they can spend the money. They cannot spend it on events,
Right.
but like that. But they could do some of the marketing for us. The city would not be involved, and we could take a look at that. But I don't want to sit here and say we're going to do this with all these items, because if we start adding all these items.
No, not with all of them.
No, I'm just talking about we'll be raising taxes, which I would rather stay away from, but if we keep on doing this, we'll keep on, inching towards the raising of the taxes next year. I think we need to stabilize. I think we need to find out where we are as far as money coming in, and when we find out where money's coming in, it's coming in better from the hotels, or it's coming in better from the rental car, or it's coming in better from liquor receipts. We can adjust and make adjustments then. This is just an initial, budget approval, and we can make adjustments as we go along.
I would like for the attorney to come back to this body and give us an opinion about DMO. I disagree. It is my belief that DMO can fund these programs entirely. That's my belief. And if we can't get an opinion from you, I'm requesting that we get the state attorney general's office to render an opinion. That is my belief, that the DMO funds can pay for these festivals.
I'd be happy to write that opinion for you.
And I would also like for you to look at the legislative intent. That includes a conversation with our state representative, Nan Orick. That's who I was advised that we should be talking to, because she sponsored that bill. The last thing is that I provided counsel with academic about cities are rethinking their DMO. Cities across the country since COVID are rethinking their DMO dollars. And the final thing is, even if it's not an eligible use of funds, maybe we need to look at the contract that we have with them about revising it.
All right, so additional questions on page 2. All right, Ms. Tice, can you give us a little bit of a guideline as to what is going on in that pie chart?
Yes, I am excited about this pie chart. The first pie chart that says strategic goal-driven funding chart, this is where we have presented the budget based on the strategic goals. And if you look at the chart below, this is how we are doing all of our expenditures associated with the strategic goals. So if you look at strategic goal number 1, which is economic growth, you see that we're committing 31% of our budget to economic growth. But the exciting thing about this budget is looking at goal number 4 and goal number 2. When you combine goal number 4, which is keeping our residents safe, and when you combine goal number 2, which is quality of life, those two goals are direct. Our residents are direct benefactors of all of the funding that we spend in those two goals. So as a city, we're committing 62? 62% of our budget is committed to activities that are directly beneficial to our residents. And then economic development is the second, once you combine those to the 61. So we're committing a decent amount to economic growth, but the majority of our funds are directly to our residents. The administrative goals and how much we spend on governance and customer service is 6%. That could have been as high as 10. So we're really holding the line in terms of expenditures on operations as it relates to direct services. So I wanted you guys I want to give you another perspective as to how we look at the budget. Many times, Councilmember Carnes and several of you will say, I just want to know how it benefits the residents. And so this is a very good story in terms of the amount that the city is investing in our residents directly.
And it's good. It's a good story.
But
I've seen these type of funding charts, and it's fine to fund by themes. I get that. I've been there many times, and I've seen it in the county. We had some of the same stuff, but at the end of the day, the actual physical fund summary on the other page is, I guess, a little more comprehensive for me, so to speak, because this can get very fuzzy, depending on who you ask. Quality of life, percentage of funds, So it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's nice, but solid physical budget is kind of where I look in terms of exactly where the money is going and what it's going to. So.
The second chart, Council, for your benefit, is to tell another story that, different than any jurisdiction around us, is a story that College Park gets to tell. If you look at our budget, our general fund, which includes property tax and some other things, is less than 25% of our revenue source. Everything else is coming from other sources, which is why it's a little difficult to compare us to many of the jurisdictions around us who are not as dependent on hospitality and some other type of revenues. So just want to give you another way to look at and process College Park compared to other jurisdictions around us.
Additional questions for Ms. Tyus? right, hearing none, that is the conclusion of our workshop session. We will see everyone at 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, council. We appreciate you all's support.
Thank you.
Thank you.